a bizarre paranormal entity that I personally encountered just a few days ago. We'll talk a little bit about that. Then we take a look at the story of a group of Boy Scouts out on a hike when they come across a bizarre sight. And then we all know that as we grow older, we're not as strong, we're not as fast, we're not the person we used to be physically. But is it possible that psychics lose their abilities over time as well? Or do they grow stronger and stronger as the years go on? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. We got a jam-packed episode, so let's get started right away. First off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet for longtime supporters of the show, Nick and Helena Bustin. Woohoo! Yeah, yeah, she's like, I've been supporting the show for years. I still don't know how to pronounce my name. It's either Helena or Helena. But the Bustins, I know, I should remember it by now, but the Bustins, longtime supporters of the show, also made a very generous donation during the 7th anniversary live stream special. That is why they are going to be our captains, our pilots in this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially, I totally understand, I really do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, Nick and... I think it's Helena. Nick and... Or is it Helena? I think it's Helena. Nick... Anyways, Nick and Helena, let's go ahead and toss you little cabbie outfits. We're going to dress you up in old-timey cabbie... I don't know what that is either. You're like, what's a cabbie outfit? They have all leather jackets and little caps. As we climb into the... do you have a new cab vehicle? No, it's just the old Jason Jalopy. I was just trying to think of a cab vehicle. The coniferous cab. I think that's another name for a rabbit. Anyways, Nick and Helena, let's go ahead and get you inside the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board this rickety old hunk of junk. As Nick and Helena drive us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way to my house. As we're headed out there, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of cool news. And then I have to ask your help for something. But we did the Dead Rabbit Radio movie night the other night. And it was a lot of fun. We watched a lot of good horror movies, short films. We watched a lot of short films. This one, there were no terrible ones. I think there was one. You know, sometimes the endings are bad. But there was none like wet snuff. What type of movies are you watching on movie night if one of them is called Wet Snuff? And it was the previous movie night, and it was basically about, if I remember correctly, the images are indelible in my brain, but I don't remember the plot if there was one. But it was about like some murderous hobo in a sewer or an abandoned building or some sort of long pipe. I mean, do you need a plot? Do you need character development? Does the bum learn to be less bummy? But just the whole... idea of being chased by a cannibalistic hobo or whatever the setup was, I don't remember. I just remember at one point the main character, it was a found footage film, had to like wrestle a naked hobo. You're like, Jason, that movie doesn't exist. You're all going through the movies we've watched. You were there that night. You're like, Jason, we didn't watch any movie like that. What are you talking about? There was nothing on the level of Wet Snuff, but there was a standout. There were actually two standout short films. They were both made by the same team. And we found them randomly. They weren't part of the Dead Rabbit Radio movie night lineup. And this is the way it works, right? People join and we kind of find new stuff to watch and things get shuffled around. It's a lot of fun. But we watched a movie called Dr. Goofy. And you're like, oh, is that like a spinoff of Dr. Giggles? No, it's about a man. You're like, Jason, I don't want to join your movie night. Wet Snuff? Dr. Goofy? A man's dog dies, so he sews the dog's head onto his own. So now he's Goofy. Gosh! And he actually sounds like that. And he has big feet. And you're like, wait a second, if the dog's dead, sewing a dead dog's head to a human body, does that mean Dr. Goofy's dead? No, he was running around and saying, gosh, for about 5 minutes and killing people. And then that was entertaining. But then we watched an actual, we were all impressed by a horror movie called Call of Squidward, where Squidward is a Cthulhu-level threat, and he's taken over Bikini Bottom. Now, I'm going to put those in. They're both like 4 or 5 minutes long, and when you can, like, tell a good story, I mean, listen, it's not Shakespeare, okay? It's not you go there like, oh, I expected it to be on the level of the original H.P. Lovecraft. No. It's just very... Here's the thing. We found the Call of Squidward randomly, because we watched Dr. Goofy, which we found randomly, and it popped up in the Watch Now. I was like, oh, we gotta watch this now. We gotta watch the Call of Squidward. So we threw it in, and none of us really knew what to expect visually. But it's fantastic. It's really, really fantastic. So hats off to that team. I forgot what their name was. But I'll put those videos in the show notes so you can watch them both. But the Call of Squidward was top notch. So we had a lot of fun there. I hope you guys join us next time. We're gonna be doing them every month. We have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun, and it sounds like you guys have a lot of fun. You're like, I hope it doesn't find Wet Snuff the sequel. I will. I'll see if I can find that. I do have to ask your guys' help for something. It's not super often that I ask you guys for help. I'm really trying to get something done, and I don't know how to do it. I would like to energize the Fluffle to help me find an answer on a way to repel raccoons without repelling feral cats, or just neighborhood cats. Because my friend Sabine, we're having an issue at her place where the raccoons are interfering with the cats. There's neighborhood cats that come on by and we feed them and stuff like that. And when I say raccoons, I gotta tell you, I saw one of them the other day, and he was easily the size of a Halloween pumpkin. Bigger. Like, you're like, oh, that's not that big. No, not the tiny one, not the tiny pumpkin. An award-winning pumpkin-sized pumpkin. He was so big when I described him, Sabine was like, oh, no, raccoons don't get that big. And she saw him last night. He's like, he's huge. I know. I know. He looks like a teardrop because his head is normal raccoon size, but then it's like a inflated water balloon. He's massive. And so far, there hasn't been a tangle, but we know there's going to be. And we know he's the leader of the pack. Now, I don't want to blow him away. I don't want to blow his head off with a shotgun. I don't even really want to use a BB gun or anything like that, or a dart gun. You're like, Jason, there's a lot of alternatives that don't involve guns. You're like, oh, I'm done researching. I know what I'll do. I'll ask the listeners. I don't want to hurt him physically. I mean, I would if he tangled with one of our cats, right? They're like neighborhood cats that we feed, and there's like 1 or 2 strays. You can tell they're really lonely. They're scared. They're slowly starting to acclimate to humans being around them. Really nice cats, but you can tell they've been in some fights. I know people don't like feeding stray cats, but we're also trying to get them so we can have them fixed. However, all that being said, I'd get in the middle of a raccoon cat fight, but we're trying to avoid that. So, I've looked at traps for the raccoon to relocate him. I'm looking at photos of the traps, I'm like, that raccoon's not going to fit in there. There's no way. I would need like a bear trap, not like a claw thingy, but like a wire trap the size of a bear. And I'll tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some sort of, because Sabine's all natural hippiopath person, and she doesn't want me shooting raccoons, and I don't want to shoot raccoons either, but I'm looking for something, a smell preferably, a chemical that will repel raccoons but not cats. And I was about to go spray apple cider, because I was reading online, apple cider vinegar repels raccoons, repel raccoons. So I went online, read that. We were going to go buy some tonight, but then it also repels cats. So we want to make the cats feel welcome. You're like, Jason, this is the weirdest paranormal podcast ever. Didn't you say your house is haunted? And you're like, I need help. I need help. The raccoons versus the cats. I know you guys are really good at researching stuff. I've been researching it just nonstop for a while now, for probably about a week. And I know raccoons don't like cucumbers. They say grow cucumbers. It keeps raccoons away. But it's winter now, right? That doesn't help us. I wish I would read that in the springtime. So if you guys can figure out a way, if you guys have any personal experiences, if you guys find anything online or have ever heard anything, because the apple cider vinegar will repel the cats, and that's not what we want. So something that will repel raccoons but won't repel cats. So anyways, if you guys can figure that out, go ahead, shoot me an email, hit me up on the YouTube comments, wherever is easiest for you. Instagram is probably the one I check the least. It takes the longest response time for me. And Twitter, I've been logged out of Twitter for the longest time. I can't even access that. I'm not blocked, but that's why I don't promote it on the show anymore. If you notice, I used to say Twitter is Dead Rabbit Radio. I stopped announcing that because I just could never access it. I was like, why am I promoting people to go there if I can never read any of their comments or ever post anything? So I changed it to the TikTok, which I check semi-regularly. Anyways, I would appreciate that help. Now, that all being said, the problem I'm about to tell you about, the paranormal problem, you're like, oh, you might be wanting to get help for that instead of the raccoons. But anyways, Nick and Helena are driving back to my place. This has been an ongoing saga for the past week, maybe over a week now. And I don't know if the two things are connected, but they probably are. Quick rundown. When I was 17, I started seeing ghosts for the first time. Really, the first time I heard a ghost was when I was 17. Then I began seeing ghosts from about 17. I don't know if that was the first time I saw a ghost. I don't remember if it was 17 or if that took a few more years. Until I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, maybe a little bit further, like actually seeing a ghost, seeing a shadow person. And then it all stopped. And actually, I think it would have been in my late 20s. After that, I would get a sense of something. Or I would see something completely off the wall, like I saw those crawlers here in Hood River. I'll put all this stuff in the show notes, but a ghost, a spirit. I haven't seen one in a long time. The closest was that one time that I was going to sage my place here, because it is haunted. And I kept talking about saging it. And then finally, after months, I decided tomorrow I'm going to sage it. And then that night I was sleeping on the couch and I woke up. And it was like half awake. And there was the old man standing in the doorway to my kitchen. And he goes, "Hey, dude, sorry, I didn't know that I was freaking you out. Please don't sage the place." But I've always thought, that I was half awake, half asleep. Was that a dream? I don't think it was a dream. I think it was an actual communication. Communicating possibly through a dream, or maybe I physically saw him. Actually, no, I did see ghosts up until my late 30s, now that I'm thinking about it, but it was more fleeting visions. Like that one time I was sitting in my chair and I looked over, and there was a bloated purple corpse on my couch. Looked like he had been strangled. But it was just so quick. Wasn't anything like you could interact with. That's terrifying, Jason. That's a ghost. That's clearly a ghost. But so quick. And I'm a skeptic. Even though I believe in all this stuff, I'm skeptical. I go, well, maybe I was really stressed. I don't know what that was. Maybe I was half asleep. Maybe I was more asleep than I thought when I saw the old man standing in the kitchen. That's the background. About a week ago, I did an episode. It was a totally innocuous episode. I've done tons of episodes like this before about jinns. And this one was specifically about how to exorcise jinns. And in that one, I was talking about why jinns show up and how to get them to leave. And during the recording, I started picking up weird noises. My computer started going on the fritz. And at one point in the episode, you can hear a growl. A clear growl. The other noises were odd. I hadn't picked them up before, like birds singing in the background. I don't recall ever hearing that before, very clearly singing, but the growl was definitely, I have no idea, again, skeptically, what could have caused that. Now, an update to that, I also said this box kept appearing in the top part of my screen when I was working on my computer. That has continued. So I don't think that has anything to do with at the time I have never seen that box before. I've been using this program for 7 years. This box keeps flashing up there. I don't know what it is. But since then, that box still pops up when I hit a certain series of keys at the same time, because I'm editing so quickly, that box is appearing. So that box is a technical thing. It had nothing to do with the haunting. So I wanted to clear that up too, because just being honest with you, I was saying I've never seen that box before. I don't know what was causing it. I felt like I was viewing the program faster than the program was operating. I'm assuming it is a glitch of the program, and it could be my computer is still not in the best state, but I don't think it's paranormal. However, the growl definitely was not normal. I'm saying all of that because what happened the other night, so what's today? I'm recording this on Saturday. So I believe it was Thursday night, so September 11th. September 11th, right? Yeah. I was laying in bed, and I wasn't completely asleep yet, but I was getting there. And my neighbors are always goofing off. I'm always hearing some noise. I live in a pretty populated area, so there's people walking around. But on a Thursday night at 11, or it was actually probably later than that, 12 or 1, when I went to go lay down, it's not usually really quiet out there. So I'm laying there, and I hear a noise right outside my bedroom window. That is so unusual. I've been thinking about this for a couple days. I talked a little bit about this during the movie night to the people who were there, but so I've been thinking about it even since I talked to them. I heard a noise, and it was a repeated noise. I'm going to, just to set the tone, I hear a thup, 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 thup. It wasn't electronical. It wasn't anyone's stereo or anyone's television. The night was quiet. 2, you guys know me, longtime listeners of the show, know Jason Carpenter, master of noises. I can imitate any noise with my mouth. Move out of the way, Police Academy guy. I'm the new man. Master of noises. All joking aside, my sound effects, every so often I get one spot on, but most of the time you're like, wait, what's he making? What noise is that? Now, what's interesting about this noise is that I cannot compare it to anything. Sometimes you can go, oh, that sounds like metal on wood, or wood on wood, or footsteps on concrete, or metal on metal. Like a repeated sound, you can go, it sounded like this and this. It sounded like 2 things colliding against each other. If I told you, imagine taking 2 rocks and hitting them together, you know that sound. Now take a wooden mallet and hit it against a piece of metal. You know that sound. And even if you don't know it right off the top of your head, you can go, well, I know what wood sounds like when it hits something, and I know what metal sounds like when it's struck. You can approximate that sound in your head. And if you couldn't do it right in your head, if you heard it, you'd go, what's going on? It sounds like someone's hitting the side of a car with a piece of wood, like a bat or something, or a dowel. You would be able to place it. I don't know what was causing this noise. That was unusual, and that's what got my attention. So I'm laying on my side, trying to fall asleep, and I hear this noise coming from outside my bedroom window. I start hearing this weird repeated noise that I can't place. I do not know what 2 things were causing this. So what I did was I rolled over onto my back so I could use both of my ears to listen, because on my side I'm only hearing from my one ear. So I roll over onto my back to listen with both of my ears, and now I'm looking straight up at the ceiling, and that is when I see a long, clearly saw, this was not a dream, there was no way to rationalize this. I saw, fully awake with my eyes, a long, thick ribbon of black smoke floating over me. I would say it was probably, because I can use my body as a gauge, it was probably about 4.5 feet long, and it was probably a half a foot thick, like wide. Half a foot wide, 4.5 feet long. That's how good of a look I got at it, that I could give you this estimate. And it was solid enough that you could see it with all the lights off. The only light coming in was from street lights coming in through the bedroom window. Yet I could clearly see it, and it looked like bacon smoke. Not, you're like, delicious, honey, cook up some bacon. Extra charred. Not when you burn bacon, but it was wavy in the way that a good piece of bacon is. A good piece of bacon. You know how it's wavy like that? And it looked like there were... See, here's the thing. I don't want to start guessing. I don't want to say it looked like there were 2 or 3 layers, because that would honestly be a guess. But what it looked like relatively flat yet wavy black smoke, fairly thick, possibly more than 1 layer, but I don't want to say for sure. It was moving, it was floating above me, and it was floating out my window. So I roll over and I see this above me, and I watch it go over my, like it starts off probably close to my groin, because that's how I'm able to get a good view of the length. I see the start and I see the finish, and as that noise is continuing, it floats over me and out the window. Now, I have not seen something like that in 20 years. Wait, so I'm 49 now. Yeah, no, that would be fair. I've seen fleeting glimpses of things, but something like that, actively moving in an environment, I haven't seen anything like that since my late 20s. At all. Nothing. The ghost in my closet's all crying. He's like, oh, I thought I was so important. I showed up in your kitchen. Different, right? Different. But he's all sharpening his ghost axe. He's like, I'm coming to get you. I'm going to team up with the raccoons. No! He's going to be enticing more raccoons to come over. You know what I mean, right? Like, you're watching something move in front of you that is not physical. There's no rational explanation for it. I was wide awake, and it was right over me. Now, what's interesting is the fact that it was leaving. I would be far more concerned if I watched it fly in. But it was leaving. So yeah, super interesting. I haven't seen anything like that in 20 years. And what honestly concerns me about it, really, and I don't know if I put this in the episode. This is something that I have said. I edit a lot of stuff out. A lot of stuff for time. Sometimes I edit out stuff because I feel I've already addressed that or whatever. But a lot of times I've recorded an hour and 10 minutes of stuff and I want to get it down to 45 minutes. I want to get it down to a reasonable length. So I'm constantly editing things out for time. And one of the things that I said, or may have left in the episode, may have taken it out, was that I have always felt that I had an ability to see ghosts and to see spirits, but it was so scary to me, I didn't want it anymore. I wanted it to go away, and it did. And whether or not that is in one of those, I said that during this week, and it might have even been during the Jinn episode, I'm not for sure, but whether or not it's in the episode, whether or not I edited it out, it's definitely something I said in a house that was charged by something. And I wonder if the abilities have been reactivated. I wonder if I'm going to start seeing ghosts again. I don't know. And how would I feel about that at 48? I turn 49 next month, but how would I feel about that as a 49-year-old versus a 29-year-old? How would I feel about that as back then, me and my buddies were running around hunting ghosts and breaking into abandoned locations and looking for spirits versus now where I'm a paranormal researcher and that's how I make my money? And it would... Well, would it benefit me to be able to see ghosts? Because at the end of the day, you can't. Because at the end of the day, if I'm going, there's a ghost over there, you don't know, you can't see it, right? I'm recording a podcast. I'm like, guys, hurry up, goblins are everywhere, And the next 45 minutes is just dead air, and there's never another episode. The goblins uploaded it as one final goblin trick. They uploaded it to the podcast. Maybe I'm going to start seeing stuff again. Maybe I'm not. How do I feel about that? I honestly don't know. Yeah, I will say this, though. It was a very interesting... Because, again, when you see something like that, you think, okay, is it going to repeat itself? Because at the end of the day, I know scientists don't like this, but paranormal researchers are scientists. And we want to see things that are repeatable. I go, is this going to happen again? Is it going to happen again later tonight? Is it going to happen again tomorrow night? The next night, I am getting ready to go back to bed, and I go, am I going to see that again? Am I going to hear that noise again? If I do, then I can maybe investigate it a little bit. Kind of then really try to figure out what that noise was. What was interesting was the very next night, I was laying there in bed, and I heard a noise outside my bedroom window, and it was clearly my neighbor working on his truck. Which goes to show that the first noise was so unusual. The second time I was laying there, I heard the sound of like a... Oh, damn it. You know, all the noises. That was the guy dropping the tool. You're like, what was that noise? Did he win a prize? Did Leprechaun give him gold? That was his socket wrench falling through his engine. It took me seconds to place the second night sounds as my neighbor's working on his car late at night. And that's how the human brain perceives things. So the first night's noises were truly unusual. I still don't know what it was or what I could even compare it to. The second night, when I did hear noises out there, the very clear noises of a man working on his car late at night, opening the hood, talking briefly, either on the phone or to himself. And I go, yeah, that proves my point even more, how unusual the noises were on the first night. We don't have enough time for the Boy Scout story. We don't have enough time for that. So we'll save that story for later. Nick and Helena, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world. Famous Carpenter Copter, we're leaving behind my house. Why don't you fly us all the way out to the home of an elderly psychic? We're flying all the way out to this retirement home. We see a bunch of Boy Scouts begging for help below. Sorry, ran out of time. I spent 10 minutes talking about how to get rid of raccoons, but someone will help you. They're all, No one came to help. But anyways, we're flying out to this rest home to meet a old man who we will call Marcus. We get to this retirement home and we see a nurse there, standing there, and we walk in and we're like, hey, we're here to see Marcus. We're here to see Marcus. Now, that's not his real name. He didn't give his real name when we posted it. The nurse is like, we don't have a patient named Marcus. Who's Marcus? What are you guys here for? I was like, well, while we're here, you got any tips on how to get rid of raccoons? But eventually, we juke her. We sneak past her, and we go on the hunt for Marcus. You're like, Jason, but you don't know. That's not his real name. How are you going to find him? We're just going to keep asking old people until one of them tells us the story that we want to hear. They're like, do you want to hear how he fought in D-Day? Boring. I want to hear Marcus's story. And the guy's like, there's no one here named Marcus. We just go into the next room. Do you want me to tell you about the time I made out with Grover Cleveland? We're like, okay, yeah, we'll sit and hear that one, Grandma. But then we got to go find Marcus. Eventually, we find the room of this man who we will call Marcus. He's 71 years old. He's not actually, he's also not in a retirement home. He's living at his own home. So we checked the retirement home. There's no one there. But let's get on with the story. Let's get on with the story. This episode's already going on a little long. We spend all of our day looking for this Marcus character at a rest home. He's not there. He's actually at his own home. So we go there, we knock on the door, and the 71-year-old man opens the door, and he goes, yes, there's been several Amber Alerts. What's the version of an Amber Alert for an elderly person? A Gray Alert. The police have been notifying everyone in the neighborhood. A group of hooligans are accosting old people and asking, have you ever made out with Grover Cleveland? And they're like, what? No. I wish, but no. Get out of here. And finally, you've arrived at my door. Well, no, we're not hooligans. We did accost a bunch of old people, but because we wanted to find you, we heard that you're a psychic. And he looks at us. He goes, come on in. And Marcus goes, yeah, let me tell you a story. It all started back when I was just a child. Marcus, where are you? Marcus is having a flashback and he hears his mother calling to him, Marcus, where are you? Marcus is a young boy, let's say age 10. And he's sitting there in his bedroom, but he's not alone in there. He sees in the corner the ghost of a little boy. A sad little boy just looking at Marcus. They're just kind of staring at each other. Marcus can see the dead. Let's fast forward a couple years. Marcus is at the county fair. Step right up. Guess the weight of this giant hog. Look at him. This guy's a monster. Can you guess his weight? Can you figure it out? And Marcus walks up to the hog. And he looks at it. He's staring at it. He's like, I don't know, 400 pounds? This isn't one of his special powers. And the carny guy goes, what? This thing's as big as a Halloween pumpkin. What are you talking about? 800 pounds, boy. Probably shouldn't have... He said the answer out loud. Everyone's like, oh, I'll do it. I'll enter. He's like, oh, man, I'm so bad at my job. I always give the answer away. Marcus is walking away, though, from this hog pig guessing contest, right? I mean, it would be pretty fun to try to guess the size of a hog. But this didn't actually happen. These are all examples. He didn't post this. You're like, what? He's totally making this up. That's not a real county fair event. Marcus is walking away from the hog event, and he goes, I didn't know exactly how much the hog weighed. In this fictional example. Again, he didn't really even say any of this. You're like, Jason, this is why your episodes go long, by the way. You're just adding fluff to an otherwise incredibly interesting story. It hasn't even started yet. This is all the setup. But anyways, Marcus is walking away and he goes, I don't have the psychic ability to guess the weight of a hog, which would be the most useless psychic ability. But He goes, I can see ghosts. I've seen ghosts for years, but I also have the ability to see energy. I can see auras. And I was looking at the aura of that giant hog, and he looked pretty sad. He's like, oh man, everyone's always making fun of my weight. I like it when they guess low. I like it when they think I'm slimmer. So Marcus intentionally guessed low. The hog's like 400 pounds. Oh man, that's still really fat. Boo-hoo. Take me to the slaughterhouse. Marcus can see energy. He can read people's auras. He can determine their mood just by looking at them. I mean, we can kind of do that too. You know, if you have a sad look on your face, you go, oh, that guy's pretty sad. But you know what I mean. You can kind of see the energy surrounding people. Let's fast forward a few years later. Now he's in high school. He's laying in bed and he's thinking, oh, I hope Peggy Sue goes to the prom with me. Oh, Peggy Sue, you're the most beautiful girl in school. But now's me time. I'm no longer going to think about going to the prom or school or grades or chores. I'm going to lean back and let my soul leave my body. And he's astrally projecting now. He's floating over his physical form. Whee! And he flies away. His mom's like, what is my son up to? Sometimes he's just staring into the corner. Sometimes he's yelling wee in the middle of the night. I'd better just leave him be. And she probably should, because if she'd walked in, she'd just seen her son sleeping. But really, he was traveling the astral realm, seeing sights and having experiences that most humans could never even dream of. He's flying around the astral plane. Now he's in his 20s. And he can feel himself whenever he gets bored. He's like sitting there at work. They're like, hey, do you have the Johnson report? He's like, sure, boss. I'll get right to it. His soul's leaving his body. He's in his 30s now. And he's walking through a crowded mall and he sees a husband and wife walking past them. And he can just tell by the energy between them that something's wrong. And he can't really do anything about it. It's not horrible. But he just goes, oh man, they must be having some real trouble in their relationship. I can see it. They look like the perfect couple, but there's something wrong there. He's in his 40s now. And someone goes, hey, Marcus, Halloween's coming up. Are you going to go to the haunted house? And he's like, nah, that's cool. I've been to enough haunted houses. They're like, what? No one can ever go to enough haunted houses. You only go once a year. And he goes, well, you know, I have the ability to see ghosts. And they're like, what? And he's like, yeah, ever since I was a kid, I've been able to see ghosts. And they're like, wow, that sure is crazy. Throughout his life, he's had these abilities to talk to the dead, see energy around people, see energy in the universe that other people can't see, astrally project, as well as other psychic abilities. And he's had them since he was a kid. But now he's 71 years old. And he's sitting there in his chair, and we're in his living room. We go, wow, that's pretty amazing, Marcus. Like, this is pretty awesome powers. Sound like you had a pretty cool life. Even though I just gave a few examples, I'm sure it was happening all the time. He goes, yeah, it was a pretty normal thing for me to have these psychic abilities. In fact, I figured I'd always have them. And we're like, huh? He reaches over for a glass of lemonade and takes a long sip. And he goes, yeah, I've noticed recently, in the past few years, my psychic powers are fading away. If I had to be honest with you guys, I think they've been fading away longer than that. I've just kind of started to notice it. In fact, as of right now, I'm almost completely normal. My abilities are almost gone for good. Now, this is a really interesting story. He posted this online underneath the name Secret Cat 2793. And he's really reaching out for help. He goes, I'm 71 years old. And my powers are fading. He doesn't use the term powers, but his abilities are fading, and he doesn't know why. He goes, this is all that I've known since I was a kid. I thought that I would always have these abilities. I knew they were different than what other people had access to, but he goes, I don't know, maybe I took them for granted. Maybe they truly are gifts. And when we have a gift and we take it for granted, it can be taken away from us. So that would be a metaphysical answer for it. If you have the ability to see the dead, to commune with the dead, but you're not using it to help the dead, or at the very least have a reality show on A&E, the ability may fade. Possibly, that'd be a metaphysical answer. You've been given these gifts by the universe and you don't use them, so will they be taken away? Maybe not super abruptly, but maybe over time. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. There's another more, I think, interesting answer to it, is that psychic abilities, this is what I actually think it is, and this is kind of where he's leaning at as well. Do psychic abilities vanish as you get older, just like all of our abilities do? Every human has a peak level of physical fitness. After that, there is a decline. For some people, it's very rapid. For some people, it's very gradual. And you can stem the tide. Let's say physical strength, for example. The average man reaches peak physical strength around his early to mid-20s. And then over time, it will begin to decline ever so slightly, year after year after year. And then I think when you hit 40 or 50, your testosterone production, it plummets. But again, that's probably too strong of a word. It just starts to decline, and now you're having less testosterone and less muscle strength, and they're kind of going hand in hand. So you get weaker over time. You can stem the tide of those, and we've all met people who have grandpa strength. My grandpa had grandpa strength, where he was 65, 70, and he was still one of the strongest people around, because he was constantly working. He did construction all of his life. And then once construction was over, he did a ton of automotive repair and remodeling and things like that. So he retained his physical strength because he was using it constantly, even though at his age he should have been weaker. And there were a lot of men that same age that were weaker because they weren't doing those things. It wasn't until towards the very end of his life, the last few years, where his health plummeted, so he couldn't get up and walk around a lot and work on stuff, and then his physical strength plummeted as well, within a matter of like 2 or 3 years. Because he was fighting against the lowered testosterone, he was fighting against the natural strength decreases of an aging body, but once he stopped fighting against those by doing manual labor, he became as frail as other men his age. This is very scientific, right? We know all that stuff. You can maintain a certain level of strength. Someone who's older may need to work out harder or really work out differently than they did when they were younger to maintain their strength and to increase their strength. And you just have to do different things. You can do it. It's a biological truth that as the human body ages, it becomes weaker in several categories. And one of those also is mental. More forgetful. The brain is more scattered than it was before. Things like that. It would make sense, because the interesting thing is, like, I do believe in psychic abilities, and I do believe in spiritual powers, but I also believe that they are tied to the physical body. So as the physical body began to break down, and I've never thought about this before, that's what I thought was so interesting about this, it would make sense if your spiritual abilities began to break down too. Now, if you think about it, it shouldn't be that way if you look at it as a strictly spiritual power. Strictly coming from the metaphysical realm, it shouldn't matter what your body is capable of. But it might. It really, really, really might. And what's interesting is I think this story is more important than I thought when I first read it. And it may be more important than you're thinking right now. You're like, okay, so some guy got old, he lost his abilities. It's interesting, but where do we go from here? Before we get there, I want to say this quick. A couple people posted saying, hey, here's some theories as to why it could happen. And it's one of them, these all could be it. One of the people said, it's been shown that the pineal gland calcifies over time. And the pineal gland is considered by many to be the part of the brain that allows these psychic abilities to flourish. He goes, you just get old and your pineal gland starts to calcify. Now, you do get into, some people believe that certain elements or certain fluids can calcify it as more. I know the big conspiracy theory, one of them, is that fluoridated water with fluoride in it, actually calcifies the pineal gland. It's to keep people to have less psychic abilities. It's an interesting conspiracy theory, but there are other things that can cause your pineal gland to calcify. And I believe it can just happen naturally as well. Even if you had a very healthy lifestyle, it could happen to you as well. Very interesting. Other people echoed what I said. Your physical ability decreases over time and your mental acuity decreases over time. So it would make sense that your spiritual powers would decrease over time. One or two people said, you know what you need to do, because you said that you just assumed these powers are always going to be there, and now your connection to it is faded to the point of almost being non-existent. You should start meditating. You should try to rebuild that connection, because that's what Marcus wants. He wants it back. Now, we don't know if any of these are the correct answers, even the theory that I was thinking. We don't know if any of these are correct answers. There may be no fix. This may just be something that happens over time. But what I thought was so interesting when I was reading this, afterwards I go, what if? This is weird, and this totally makes sense. Let's put our conspiracy caps on. What if, and we see this happen from time to time, you'll have a famous psychic, Sylvia Browne, or people of her ilk, who believe they can communicate with the dead. We're going to really narrow in on this. You have a psychic who says, I can communicate with the dead. And they can always point to a long list of achievements in their past of where they've helped police solve cold cases, where they've known things about the dead that the family goes, nobody else knew that outside of the family. Nobody. It wasn't something you could Google. It wasn't some guess. Sylvia Browne knew something that nobody should have known outside of the two of us, the mother and the father, sitting at the table, but she knew this about our son. And you can read about this in books. You can hear about these stories from third-party observers of things they've done, you know where I'm going with this, right, in their past. And then one day, they get outed as a fraud. So, what I'm getting at is that Sylvia Browne may have been a legit psychic for decades. She did help cops with cold cases. She did commune with the dead. But as she got older, her abilities began to fade. And here's the thing. She's passed away at this point, but she was a best-selling author. She would do seminars. She would do these readings where people would pay to come and see if maybe she would connect to their loved ones who have passed away. That was how she made her living. And so I wonder, and this could apply for so many psychics that do get exposed for frauds later in life. It's usually the guy who's written a couple books and has had a couple TV shows that people begin going, well, that's fake, and they try to figure out whether or not it's fake, which is fine. You should be able to do that. But what I'm saying is, you're not testing the 7-year-old who says he can see ghosts. And you're really not even testing the 19-year-old who thinks that the dead girl that she sees at the foot of her bed every night is trying to tell her, I'm at the bottom of the lake. I'm at the bottom of the lake. My boyfriend killed me, and they can't find my body. I'm at the bottom of the lake. And she makes an anonymous phone call to the police, and they do find the body down there. Those people don't get investigated. It's the person who has millions of dollars and is writing all these books because people go, you're taking advantage of these people's grief and you're making money off of it. If you were doing it for free, if you were remaining completely off the grid and weren't trying to publicize it, well, no one would know to investigate you. And what happens is that is where you make your living. You've been doing this for years. You've had this ability when you were a kid, and as you got older, you started to notice that the ability was going away. But you can't say that. And you can't retire. Even if you had enough money, it's the spotlight on you. You are Sylvia Browne. World famous medium. It's your identity. And you know just enough flim-flam, and you still have just enough psychic ability, just a little bit, not as much as you had when you were younger, but you have just enough that you can get away with it for a while. But as you get even older, your psychic ability fades more because you're older and all your abilities fade more. So you have to rely more and more on the flim-flam until eventually you do get caught. And then you are outed as being a fraud the entire time. which you weren't. You were only a fraud for the past 3 years of your 30, 40-year-long career. And that's what's very interesting whenever someone gets... I keep using Sylvia Browne because that's just the one that I remember watching the video of. This happens a lot. But I'll see if I can find some other examples for the show notes. What's interesting is that whenever one of these guys gets outed as a fraud, you always have people from the past saying, she did help us with that cold case. Like, I don't know how she did it, but she did help us find that girl's body. Now, what's interesting is you go, well, Jason, you just gave the example that sometimes people will remember events differently than they were. And that's true. That could also be at play. Maybe she always was kind of psychic and a good guesser, and she got enough info from the police that she could narrow it down, and the police remember it as, she helped us find this body. We had no clue, and she came in and said, I've been having dreams. The girl's in the lake. The girl's in the lake. It's possible. If they had these psychic abilities, true psychic abilities when they were kids, and used them, and the people who interacted with them, all the people in their past remember the events exactly how they were. Psychic abilities helped them with an issue. And then they find out 50 years later she's outed as a fraud. You go, but wait a second. No, I remember she helped me. She knew things no one else should have known. Because back then she did. And as she got older, her abilities faded and she began to become more reliant on the flim-flam. Carl Jobst, he's a YouTuber who specializes in exposing video game frauds. And one thing he always does is a lot of times these cheaters in video games and these ultra competitive video games, they're the best players in the game. They've been playing the game for 5-10 years. They are the best. And then they get exposed as cheating. And one of the things that his detractors go, well, why does that guy need to cheat? He's the best. He's been the best for years. And you've only caught him cheating once. He's only cheated once. We know that for a fact. And Carl Jobst had an interesting point. He goes, you don't understand. It's the best players who have the biggest temptation to cheat. They have something to lose. Not something to prove. They've already proven themselves. They have something to lose. They know what it's like to be in the top 10, the top 5, maybe the top place of a game that most of us have never heard, that most of us may have never heard of. But in that community, they are a rock star. And they're not going to give that up. But they're just not as fast. They're not as good as they used to be, even by just milliseconds. Some of these games, by milliseconds. So they cheat. They cheat, and then a year later they get caught, and it completely destroys their legacy. And even Carl Jobst, there's a great channel. I'll put it in the show notes. I watch him all the time. But he goes, everyone will agree. He never cheated before that game. Everything else they can verify was 100%. Because what happens is if you expose a cheater, you go through all of the old plays and look for any other hint. And nothing. That is the only time he cheated, but the pressure was on. The best player in the game had to cheat to retain his crown. He goes, it's actually more likely that the best people cheat than the newcomers. Newcomers do cheat, and they tend to get caught quicker. Because all of a sudden, some nobody with only 400 or 500 hours in a game is in the top 10. They're like, what? No, you need to put like 1,000 hours to get good at this game to this level. They get caught quicker. They got something to prove, but the greats have something to lose. And I ask you, what is more motivating to start breaking the rules? Something to prove or something to lose? The new psychic on the block, who's all flim-flam, maybe trying to get a book deal or a movie deal or a reality show on A&E deal. So they're faking things. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But imagine you've already been doing your job for 40 years. You've had the book deals. You still have the book deals. You had the reality show deals. That new season's coming out. You're a consultant on all these movies, and you know you're not as good as you used to be. You know you're running at 10% capacity, and you know for the past 5 years, the dead have begun getting quieter and quieter and quieter. it would actually explain a lot of those psychics who are caught after years of being investigated. Right? People have been looking into them for a long time, and they're like, well, it's weird. Everyone they talk to, they do confirm that they knew things. We've attended some of the live shows, and we don't know how they're doing it. And you keep investigating, and then one time you catch them, and you go, they were always a fraud. But no, they used to have legit psychic powers, but those psychic powers left. However, their need to be known worldwide as a psychic remained. They couldn't give that up. They couldn't walk away into the sunset. They couldn't admit, my powers are gone. They faded with age. Now you're just an ordinary person standing on stage looking at hundreds of people waiting for you to speak. But the only voice you hear is your own. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.